Our society really admires it when rich people give away huge piles of surplus money towards the end of their lives, particularly when they donate large sums of it to the arts. It seems so noble and so good. What nice capitalists they are. How grateful we should be to have them in our midst. In recognition, sometimes these rich donors have a gallery named after them where their masterpieces hang. Dinners are given in their honour, and the odd title may be thrown their way. Take this big capitalist who made lots of money in construction. Now he's given lots of it to preserve beautiful bits of ceramic in elegant glass cases. This combination of a money-making life and artistic philanthropy follows in the footsteps of great plutocrats like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Clay Frick or Andrew Mellon. They made money in so-called low areas of the economy, like coal mining, railways, abattoirs and packing factories, areas where you squeeze costs as tightly as you can and are always looking to reduce benefits as much as possible. However, once the money's in the bank, these rich people wholeheartedly turn their attention to higher causes, among which art and all that it celebrates, like kindness, beauty and tenderness, looms especially large. We suggest a different path. People should stop being good in the way they distribute their money. They should try to be good in the way they make it. It's simply absurd to ignore goodness for many decades while pulling together an astonishing fortune, and then, later in life, suddenly to rediscover one's conscience by an act of immense generosity towards some localized little shrine of art like an opera house or a museum. Would it not be better and truer to the values underlying many works of art to strive throughout the course of one's life, especially within the money-generating day job, to make kindness, tenderness, sympathy and beauty more alive and more real in the world? Tantalizingly and tragically, the difference between goodness and cruelty in most businesses is a few percentage points of profit. That's the difference between paying your workforce well and abusing them, between producing products that are shoddy and products that are decent. For the sake of just a tiny bit of surplus wealth that isn't strictly even needed, human life is daily being degraded and sacrificed. Would it not be more humane if rich business people agree to sacrifice a little of their surplus wealth in their main area of activity and in the most vigorous period of their lives in order to render the workplace more noble and humane, and then bothered less with dazzling displays of artistic philanthropy in their later decades? What we're asking for is enlightened investment, where a lower return is sought on capital in the name of kindness and goodness. There would be less fancy art at the end of it, but the values within works of art would be far more widely spread across the earth. Part of the reason why the present system survives has to do with the way status is offered. This is a key part of the jigsaw, and we ignore it at our peril. The rich currently get a huge amount of status from making big philanthropic donations to the arts. However, they would get no respect if they claimed to be limiting their wealth-making potential by running their businesses in ways that made daily life slightly nicer for employees and society. There is more status to be found in exploiting mines, rainforests and call centres with ruthless abandon for 3 decades, and then your animal energies having run dry, putting on a black-tie jacket and funding an opera house or museum of 17th century still lives from the proceeds. This strategy has to it a glamour far greater than the infinitely more humane, and therefore in the deep sense artistic task of steadily building a more agreeable world for people at a modest 3% annual rate of return, which at the end of life leaves you little except for the inherent satisfaction of having done something worthwhile with your years. Enlightened capitalism requires new kinds of patrons interested in making money but willing to sacrifice returns for the sake of higher goals. Art is surely a lovely thing, but even more valuable are the sort of things that the works of art we love celebrate: kindness, empathy, goodness, beauty. At the end of the day, it seems far better to have these qualities in our offices and factories than to add yet another museum or masterpiece to the nation's collection. It's far closer to the real spirit of art to run a factory that's attractive, to be kind to workers, and to treat colleagues well, rather than bully, fight and exploit for a lifetime, and then give a Renoir to the National Gallery in one's last years. Don't buy the picture and give it to the nation. Try to make the sweetness and kindness in the picture more possible in day-to-day life. For example, by giving workers more time off to be with their families. That's better than philanthropy. It's true decency.
Philanthropy. The Oxford English Dictionary states that philanthropy is the desire to promote the welfare of others, especially by a generous donation to a good cause. And so, who here can satisfy that definition and be a philanthropist? Let's test this idea out within this group. Can everyone take out their wallets and their checkbooks and write a check to a generous cause? Just for example, let's say St. Jude's. Okay. For those of us like me who couldn't write a check for a couple $1,000s, or even 5, does that mean that we cannot be philanthropic? Can I not be philanthropic? My mother is a low-income American from Sierra Leone, West Africa. When she came to the States, she was fleeing a civil war. Coming to the States, she noticed that she was afforded many privileges her peers back home were not, including access to post-secondary education and protection against certain discriminations. Being that she was aware of these privileges, she felt that it was her need to help those left behind in Sierra Leone. 20 years later, she returned back to Sierra Leone. And as she was traveling from the capital city of Freetown to a smaller city of Bo, she met a young boy the exact same age as me. She looked at the young boy and said, "Why are you in school?" The young boy explained how his mother could not afford to send him to school. My mother broke down in tears, seeing me in the eyes of this young boy, and she promised to do everything she could to help him succeed in his educational endeavors. She promised everything from admissions into a school to everything he would need to eat his lunch. And she did all this without writing a single check, only using her personal privileges as an American and her connections to the Sierra Leone educational system to help significantly improve the life of this young boy. And so when she came back to the States, she sat me down and she explained what she had done for this young boy and what she had planned to do for many other children. And then she opened my very young and philanthropic eyes. One day, as I was watching my favorite show, Sid the Science Kid, I was really interrupted by a commercial that we've all seen. The commercial depicted a very young African or South Asian child, barely dressed and malnourished, saying that 5 cents a day could help improve the life of this young boy or a young child. And even then, I could understand that 5 cents wasn't going to do much to improve their lives. So inspired by what my mother was able to do with 0 cents, I thought, I can do something too. After my mother had raised 2 children and unofficially fostered many others, there was plenty of clothing sitting around in our garage. I proceeded to take those clothing and throw them at the TV with the expectation that the clothing would fly through and appear in front of the children. And of course it did. And so it became a tradition every year for us to throw clothing at the TV in expectations that they'll be donated to these young children. And if you're wondering how this worked, the megapixels in the screen were larger. I'm kidding, that's not how it worked. But this did inspire my mom to think of other ways to help better the lives of others. And so every year, we would take clothing and shirts and shoes and anything that we could, and we would package them up and take them to Sierra Leone to be given to children who are in need of the clothing. And so in my older age, I started to think about my privilege a little bit more. The clothing was given to them to help better their lives and opportunities in education systems where they might require clothing. So in my older age, I thought about my privilege a little bit more. I live in America, a developed nation. I live in Massachusetts, a state that has one of the best public school systems in the country. I never go to bed hungry, nor do I have to necessarily work to support my family. These are all privileges my peers within this country, let alone other parts of the world, do not have. And so I wanted to give back as well. I started small. I started to help my mother in her donation process, and I would try to find shirts and shoes and anything that could possibly use to help better the lives of others to give to the children in Sierra Leone. And around the age of 13, my mom got a job in Accra, Ghana. And while she went to enjoy the warm sun, I stayed in the cold to pursue my education. But during the summers, I would travel to Texas, where my mother wasn't there to help continue the donation process. And I felt I was missing something, not giving back, though I had the opportunity to. So I continued the process there as well. I went to my uncles and my cousins and my neighbors' houses, garages, and storage units to find any piece of clothing that could be used to help better the lives of others. And I knew I was doing something. I didn't know what it was called because I didn't want to call it philanthropy because I still had that mindset that it needs to be associated with money in order for it to be philanthropic. But then I thought, can only the rich and wealthy help better the lives of others and be called philanthropic? Because clearly everything me and my mother were doing would help bettering the lives of these young children's lives. And so, I believe the definition of philanthropy is an idea, event, or an action that is done to help better humanity, especially by a sacrifice of some kind. And so, if earlier you were not able to take out a check write a check for $1,000 or 25 cents, that's okay. You can still be philanthropic in your own way. You can still give non-monetary donations and still improve the lives of others. I'm not asking individuals to think of themselves as Captain Save the Poor, but to think of the position within society and use their privilege to help better the lives of others. Many people are put into positions at no fault of their own, and it's only right that we use our privilege to help improve those in need. I share my experience of philanthropy to help create a society that sees helping your fellow man not as a chore, but as a norm. Money does not make the world turn, only shake a little. Compassion, sacrifices, and throwing clothing at the TV is what really makes the world hit a 360. Thank you.